Welcome everyone to Sawyer's provider webinar for October 2022. Thanks for joining. We're going to be talking about Sawyer product features today. We have a lot of features that I want to talk about. I'm excited to highlight some stuff for you that you may already know a little bit about. Maybe you learn a little bit more about it today. Maybe there's some stuff you don't know about at all that we'll talk about today. Very excited to have you all here and to talk through some of the stuff with you. Before we dive in, just kind of want to talk quickly about why we decided to do a product focused webinar today. Recently we've done marketing focused webinars, DEI focused webinars. The reason we wanted to do a product webinar today is I have a lot of conversations with providers. Many of you I'm sure I've spoken with. And some of the features that I want to talk about today are some of the things that providers ask about most often, either explicitly or if they're just things that come up in conversations with providers about their Sawyer accounts or about how to set up things in general, scheduling options, things like this. And also in particular, I tried to highlight things that I'm going to try to focus on things that are most impactful and that have tended to surprise providers that I speak with. So features that when providers discover that they already have the ability to be using this feature and they are not yet, presents an opportunity to potentially do things in a new way, a more efficient way, maybe open up a new revenue stream, something like this. So that's the thought behind the focus of the webinar today. We are recording this as well. So no sweat if you have to hop off a little bit early. You can catch up down the road. So now that I've told you what we're going to be doing today, I will tell you who is going to be doing it. Me, I'm Dylan. I'm a senior manager of account management at Sawyer. What that means essentially is that I work with providers like you to try to help you get the most out of the product. I live in Brooklyn with my wife and our 9-year-old. I've been at Sawyer, 9-month-old. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. I've been at Sawyer for about 400 years now, just getting 4.5 years. And before that, I ran a STEM summer camp and after school program. Before that, I was a museum educator at a history museum. So I've been in this space one way or the other for quite some time. And at Sawyer, this is true. This sounds corny, but I genuinely love working with providers to make sure that you are set up for success and reaching as many participants as possible with, and I mean this, your spectacular programming. I have every provider that I have ever met in person and every piece of program I have ever witnessed has been amazing. I know that you are doing this for that reason, because you want to spread this, you want to serve students and do this amazing programming. That's the whole point. So my mission is to try to support you in doing that, and I genuinely love doing it. Also, today we have Dana, who is going to be speaking a lot in the chat. I'll let her introduce herself quickly here, though.
Hi, everyone. For those of you who haven't met me yet, my name is Dana. I'm the Vice President of Provider Experience at Sawyer. I have the privilege of working with amazing rock stars on my team, everyone from the sales process all the way through account management with Dylan. I kind of work alongside to make sure that we're listening to our provider community, making sure that we're providing the best experience from a product standpoint, and also just from our resources and our help center and our webinars like this. I live in New York. Unlike Dylan, with a wife and an adorable baby, I have an impressive plant collection at this point. So if you need some plant advice, or if you have plant advice for me, please let me know as a plant parent. I've been at Sawyer now for 3.5 years, but before that, I worked as Vice President of Development at a company called Kidville, which was a global franchise company. In the early education space, I understood what it was to both be a teacher. I went to theater school and I was teaching young children theater classes, and then all the way through scaling our model internationally, and how do we do that in the right way, and sort of all of the landscape of the challenges that many of you face. I've probably done it in some way, shape, or form. I love working at Sawyer like Dylan. I think like I am continued to be inspired by the work that we do here because of our business owners. And for me, I love kind of giving the insight and the insider knowledge of like, here's what it means to be a children's activity business. Like, here is the day in and day out operational challenges that they face. Here's how we can streamline our products to make it even easier and simpler to onboard new staff. How do we continue to make sure that we're building the features and functionality for the future? How do we kind of get through periods of disruption like many of you have over the last couple of years? So that's really like what continues to get me inspired about working in this industry. And I think from my mission is really like continuing to look through and advocate for things on our roadmap. How do we evolve and scale our products and services to continuously support the ever-changing landscape of the industry that you've all chosen to be a part of, and very much the industry that we've chosen to be the software provider for. So that's what really excites me and continues to get me up and dressed in the morning and talking to many of you. And so many of my team is on the chat today. Shout out to all of the customer support team and Dylan. But if you have questions along the way, if you want to chat with me, I'm just keeping the chat going. What I'd love to know is who you are, where you're calling in from, and the name of your business as well. Cool.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks, Dana. Great. So yes, I will second that and say definitely engage with Dana in the chat conversation if you are participating live. If you are watching or listening later, just know that Dana did a great job today, and we appreciate it. But yeah, if you are here listening live, participating, introduce yourself, say your name, where you're from, name of your organization, provider name. Do that now, just so we know who's around. Also use the chat to ask questions at any point. I'm going to go over a lot of content today. I'm going to talk about a lot of features. And if there's time, I would love to do questions at the end, but if you have questions along the way, don't be shy. And if you want to, if there's a question or a statement that you want to share with us, but you don't necessarily want to say it out loud in front of the group, so to speak, you can DM me or Dana at any point to share anonymously. One more thing I'll just mention, because Dana brought it up, and I'm glad she did, is that a slight distinction here between like what we're going to be talking about today and some of the things that are always on our mind. Everything we're going to be talking about today is something that already exists as a Sawyer feature, one way or the other, whether you know about it, whether it's in your account and you have it enabled or not. We are always working on new things behind the scenes, and we'll be excited to share more of that stuff in another conversation. But I bet, well, I shouldn't bet, but I'm very confident that you will learn at least one and probably many brand new things today, even about many features that we already have. But before we dive into that, just to go over the plan for today, I want to briefly talk about a marketing timeline, which I like to do just to try to sort of give you a check-in about where you should be at in terms of what you're planning for, what you're promoting at the moment, now and over the next couple of months. And then we'll get into this long list of Sawyer features that I've been sort of talking about for the last almost half an hour. And then, like I said, hopefully we have time at the end for some questions as well. Okay, here's this marketing timeline. So summer feels like it's far behind us now. So now is the time to start thinking about summer again, believe it or not. It is, I know, mid-October. Hopefully, if you're doing fall programming, you have that pretty well figured out at this point. Maybe it's not on cruise control, maybe it's still a lot of work, but hopefully you're not like still coming up with this. Hopefully you kind of have that at least set, and you have a little bit of bandwidth to start thinking about what's coming next. And what is coming next? So holiday promos, you should be thinking about how you can sort of take advantage of the fact that holidays are coming up. That means school breaks. That means potentially a Black Friday sale, getting ready to sell gift cards for the holidays, maybe doing a Halloween event. And then, yes, thinking about what summer is going to look like. I don't necessarily mean you need to start launching summer camp sales in October. You don't need to know exactly what you're doing and where you're going to do it or how much it's going to cost, but you should start thinking about at least setting yourself up to have a planning timeline around all that stuff if you haven't already. That way, in November, December, when it suddenly becomes a situation where you start seeing other people put up their summer camps, you're not playing catch up, right? You've at least thought about what you want to be doing, when you want to have your plans set. So it should at least be on your radar at this point, as weird as it sounds to say that summer is coming up. Looking ahead to November. This is going to be all about winter and spring, summer, and also still fall. So also still fall, definitely make sure that the programming that you're doing already is going well. You definitely don't want to like sacrifice the experience that you're leading in the moment to get too far ahead of yourself. And make sure that your fall families are continuing on, whether your next semester is winter or spring, or the next thing you have coming up is summer. You want to make sure that you're retaining the families that you're already working with. So thinking about how A, to make sure that they're having a positive experience, and B, how to make sure that they have an easy way to continue on with you. And then in November, I would definitely encourage you to consider launching early bird summer camp sales by the end of the month. So a great time to do this is with a Black Friday sale for early bird. It's okay if you don't do this. Not everyone does this. But that's like really early. That's like a best practice for really early bird. Is a lot of summer camps will start to post as early as the end of November. If you're not ready to do that, that's okay. Totally fine. In fact, it may be considered, depending on where you're at, and this varies greatly, might be like too early. Maybe no one would sign up, but at least by announcing that you will have summer camp, even if you aren't letting people register yet, people at least can put in the back of their minds, oh, okay, I know that they're gonna do summer camp. So that way, when other providers do start to put their stuff up and announce it, then at least you're sort of in the like internal conversation as people are considering what to do. And you know what? Not a bad idea to throw up a like an email capture on that page too. Hey, we don't have camps announced yet, but put your email in here and then we'll let you know as soon as we announce them. That we have like an instant marketing list to just let people know, okay, you're interested, great, we'll let you know as soon as we're ready. Okay, looking ahead to December. Holidays, camps, and holiday camps. So December has a lot of opportunities for one-off holiday camps. So these are days when like, school is closed, but many parents are still working. So this is a great opportunity to do like little pop-up single day camps. And a lot of times you'll get families for these that aren't necessarily regular, let's say after school families. And so it's a great way to try to expand your audience a little bit. And it's a great opportunity to offer people a discount on summer camp. For people who come to that day, maybe it qualifies them for a discount. And maybe you can preview the content depending on how well you have it planned out by then as well. The other thing to remember for December, it's gift card season. This is great especially for grandparents. And if you do marketing emails, if you send emails to if you send like emails to your email list and you say, hey, we're doing gift cards, you can literally say in the email, forward this to grandparents. Might just give someone an idea to do that. Grandparents are great candidates to help out with things that are pretty expensive, like summer camp. So this can be a really good opportunity. And then looking way ahead to January, next year, I won't get into too much detail here. Set goals for the new year and then get to work on them. I think as long as you put yourself in a good place to wrap up the year and start planning ahead, maybe already taking a fair amount of registrations, you're in a good position. Maybe we'll talk more detailed about all that in a future webinar. For now, with the marketing timeline laid out here, let's move on to talk about some product features. So how are we going to do this? I'm just going to spotlight some things that I think are interesting and, like I said, have come up time and time again in conversations that I've had with providers. And I'm going to break it into 3 categories. First, we're going to talk about how you can use more of the product features that you already have. Then we're going to talk about how you can get more from features that you already use. And then lastly, we're gonna try to help you learn more about some features that you may not have yet, or you may have and you don't realize that you have access to, which I'm calling the secret menu. So we'll get to that as we move forward here. So starting with using more of the features that you already have. And you may already use these. We'll talk through them and I'll try to be quick. Packs. Okay. So what are packs? Packs let you sell drop-in spots in bulk. So when I say drop-ins in Sawyer, that means single day, right? So if you sell single day registrations, packs let you sell them like a pack of drop-ins of single day registrations all at once. So why would you want to do this? By letting people buy more than one at a time, you can increase the amount that they spend at checkout all at once, and give them a reason to keep coming back. Because when you buy a pack, you don't have to register for specific days, right? You can just say, I'm going to buy a pack of drop-ins and I'll apply them to specific dates later on, which is great because it gives flexibility to customers too, because maybe they know they do want to commit and maybe they say, okay, I would sign up for the semester version of this, but it's not that I want to come every single Monday. Some weeks it's going to be Monday, some weeks it's going to be Tuesdays. So I want to buy a pack because you can give customers the option to do this and save a little bit of money, right? Let's say you have $10 drop-ins. If you sell a pack, a 12 pack for $100, that's cheaper than if they were to buy one drop-in every time, right? So this is great for them because they can save a little money. You're still getting to spend more money at once, and it gives them flexibility and sort of incentive to keep coming back because then they have the spot with you, right? And what's great is it's already, if they next time they buy a drop-in when they have the pack, the spot automatically applies. So you don't have to track this on your own. Okay, cool. You could set this up under products. Moving on to parties. Parties feature in Sawyer. What is it? Parties feature lets customers request parties. It is not an instant book feature. It is a request form with a lot of other functionality, which I'll talk about. So lets customers request parties, field trips, or private events. Then you can customize them. You can invoice for deposits or the full amount. You schedule them, and then you can manage the booked parties. So why do you want to do this? This is great for generating interest, collecting that interest, and then once you, if you're not offering parties, you may want to consider doing this because not only is it a moneymaker, but it's a great way to get families into the space and to try to convert them to some of your other programming, which maybe you're more passionate about. And not just the families who are hosting the party either. They're, in theory, bringing a whole bunch of other children, families into your space too, who you can send home with goodie bags, coupons. You can make like a custom coupon for, with the birthday person's name in it, so that the family feels special and says, oh, cool, I get to use this exclusive coupon code to sign up. This is like a great way to try to expand your audience. You can gather brand new emails, add people to your newsletter. And a great reason to use this feature is that way you can manage everything in your Sawyer portal because it'll be part of your regular schedule. I'm going to talk more about parties in a minute. Like packs, you can set them up under products. Gift cards are digital gift cards. They're not physical gift cards. This is actually easier because you can't lose them. Gift cards increase spend. They increase stickiness similar to packs, right? Once you have this essentially like account credit to spend, it's a great reason to come back and use it with you. And as I mentioned before, great for grandparents, and similar to these other two, here you can set them up under products in your portal. Okay, moving on to another feature here, appointments. Appointments is a sort of well, what is it? It's one-on-one private lessons. So if you don't offer one-on-one private lessons, keep listening because maybe you want to. They're a great way to get people in the door who might not otherwise sort of like want to take the risk and check out your space. They might think that they maybe they do one-on-one lessons with a private tutor or a private teacher, and that's more their speed. But if you were to offer them private lessons, maybe they would kind of become more comfortable with your space and do some of your other offerings as well. So it opens up a sort of a different type of student potentially. The other really great thing about private lessons is, although you can charge a premium for them because they're one-on-one, you may also want to do them even if you don't make any money off of them, because it's a great way to help your staff make money and get extra hours, do something they're passionate about. And it's something to consider for a staff experience as well, even if it's not necessarily a big moneymaker for you as a provider. These are scheduled under schedules. Okay, I'm trying to fly through the stuff here because I got a ton. Moving on to a revenue report. So this is somewhat of a it's a very specific report. You can find it in your insights dashboard. This report lets you track revenue by scheduled activity, which is very helpful because this is how you can learn which of your offerings are more effective compared to others. So you can compare, let's say, an activity that you have on Monday and on Tuesday to see how those two compare. You can compare across different content, different season, whatever it is. But as you're evaluating your offerings and deciding what you want to do more of, what you want to do less of going forward, this report can be really, really helpful just for you to figure out how each scheduled activity really did. Okay, free trials. Free trials are essentially work the same way as drop-ins in that they're single day, but you can set them up on any activity that you want. And this lets students essentially test drive the class before they sign up, which for a lot of people can feel like a lot to commit to something before they have really any visual for it or any real idea of what the experience might be like. So this sort of reduces that friction for a lot of people. It's just a way to get people into your space. And it's a great way, as it says here, to stand out on the Sawyer Marketplace. The most searched term on the Sawyer Marketplace is free. So people love free stuff. And I will say that I've had this conversation with a lot of providers, and there's very often some hesitance around giving anything away for free, which I think is good because you should value your time because it is valuable. And I think that's the right attitude to have. But taking a longer view of free trials is that although not every single person who does a free trial will ultimately become a paying customer, it just takes a few conversions to be paying customers for that to really pay off. Because once you get a customer who keeps coming back and keep coming back until they age out, that's worth a few people who come by and you never see again. So that's really something to consider. And you can do the math on that, right? You can figure out like, okay, how, what is a customer on average worth to me? So how many of these do I need to get to give up my spot? So another thing I would think of is free trials are especially great if you have classes with a few extra spots where it wouldn't be such a big deal for you to welcome in another student. If you're already selling everything out and you have a really long wait list, there are a couple other things I would suggest doing, maybe expanding, raising prices. But free trials might be a little bit of a heavier lift in that instance. Okay. Before we move on, I just want to give Dana an opportunity to call anything out from the chat that maybe is worth highlighting. I can see that the chat that has been very active, but I don't think we have time.
We're very active here in the chat. No, I love Liz mentioned that she loves the free trials. The turnover rate is phenomenal. And I said, I do know that we've talked about free trials on these webinars before, and providers have definitely expressed, and I think many of you as business owners can attest to this, like people not showing up, people trying to game the system to get as many free trials. But I think, and again, I think Renee, you bring up a good point here about skill-based teaching, that free trials can be hard. I think the thing to keep in mind, even if you don't do free trials, what's your version of giving families flexibility, I think is the reality there, that some will look for free, others understand like a demo class, even if it's a discounted demo class, or even if it's something like, where you have skill-based programming, thinking about it of like, what can you offer? What is a way of doing a tour of your facility, meeting your teachers? Is there another info session that you can potentially do that maybe isn't disruptive to the program, but still gives somebody an opportunity to try something out? And I think I'd love to hear some of these amazing ideas. Some questions here. I love that everybody has been talking about getting their camps up early. Like most have been saying January, February. Some have said they had huge wait lists. So Amber just shared they're doing an early bird listing for folks that were kind of closed out of spots. So launching it even earlier, which I love. Like if you were sold out last summer, the earlier you go, hopefully people get the memo that they really need to book earlier. So you start to train that kind of the user behavior that you want and not rewarding the one that you don't. Amy asks, and I would love to hear this of the group, do people who have packs book drop-in time before they show up, or do you deal with it when they check in? What if you're already at capacity? I think that's a really great point. If like you sell packages that give flexibility, how do all of you kind of handle that? And I think that Dylan, if you have kind of any insights into that, but for the most part, yeah, everybody's just been sharing how they handle it and when they don't do something or why they do see success with it. So yeah, all good.
Great. Awesome. Love to hear all these conversations happening. Love to hear people putting their camps up earlier. I think something to keep in mind there too is like the worst that happens if you put your camp up earlier is that no one buys it, which they weren't going to anyway if you didn't have it up. So I'm always going to encourage you to do it earlier. Of course, it means more work sooner, but you're going to have to do the work at some point. Better to do it on a longer timeline. So hopefully you can be a little bit more careful. With packs, it's a great question. I think the term drop-ins sometimes implies like just swing by and don't have a booking, which tends to work better if people book ahead of time, and that's how they're going to have a guaranteed spot, right? So if you do sell out, that's something to make clear for sure. That's a great question. The other thing, just to circle back to this free trials thing, Dana makes a great point. Really, it's not necessarily about free trials, right? It's about getting people in the space. And that's like a thread that maybe you sensed going through many of these things that I mentioned here. Parties, appointments, free trials, even gift cards. Just, the assumption is that you are doing great programming, right? And that once people experience that, once they get into your space, and even if you do online programming, your proverbial space, I think once they appreciate your offerings, then that's great. You have them where you want them, right? They can appreciate what you're doing. So that's the idea with free trials. And to Dana's point, whether you use the free trials feature for that or not, the spirit is giving people a taste of what you offer. All right, let's move ahead here. I do want to do a moderately deep dive into parties to try to, I'm not going to do this for all 6 of the things we just mentioned because there's a lot more to talk about, but just to give you a little bit more insight into this in case you don't use this feature already. Here's an example of what a parties widget looks on a provider's website. This is Treasure Trunk Theater's website. On the left, you can see this is what the widget looks like. They have a couple of party packages that they've made in Sawyer. And then if you click into one of those, you'll see on the right, you get a request form. They get a big description of what the party is, how it works, what the policy is. And then the parent or the host can fill out this inquiry, and they can put anything they want. They can put any time, they can put any date, they can put any details they want, which is sometimes can be seen as not a positive if that's not what you're about. But the thing that's really great about it is that way there's no one who doesn't fill out a form because they don't think that you have what they want. So it doesn't, in other words, it doesn't block anyone out from inquiring, which I think is nice. Here's what it looks like up close. This is from my test account. So you can see they have you'll see the package. If you have a Sawyer account, you're signed in, some of your info pre-fills, which is nice. And they can request specific details. And then on your end, this is what it looks like. You get to see the request come into you. You get alerted about this. You can see it in your calendar alongside anything else that you have that day, which is nice. So you can see if there's availability. You can edit any of the details, whether that's time. So in theory, you connect with them, maybe you get on the phone, you say, hey, like, okay, we can't do that time. Can you do 2 hours later? Great. You change the time, maybe change the address, maybe you change the head count, maybe you change the price if there's any special considerations, maybe you add some goodie bags or whatever other add-ons. Point is you can customize it completely, and then you can invoice them, and they get an email and they can fill it out from there. And as they go through the process, the timeline sort of gets checked off and you can keep track of how this all works. So in other words, it's a request form, but there's a lot of functionality that lets you follow through for folks as well. And just to give you like a quick rundown of what's automated. So when a party is requested, parent gets a confirmation email, you get a notification as well. And then you can go in and confirm all details. Then when you request a payment, whether it's to just the deposit or the full amount, parent gets an email with a direct link to pay, which is basically an invoice. And you can still edit the party, right? If you need to change any of the details, all good, send another one, and it sort of like replaces the first one. And then when the balance is paid, you and the parent both get confirmation emails, and the party automatically moves to booked, and you can see in your upcoming calendar along with everything else that you have booked, which I think I have a screenshot for. Yes, right here. So you can see over here on the left on Monday, you can see the party sort of fits in with everything else. So you can see it at a glance. Okay, I blew through that, but just to kind of give you a recap, why you should offer parties or private events, makes your space work for you, right? So you're paying rent whether you're using your space or not. So making the most of the moments when your space is otherwise just sitting there and you're just paying for nothing. Parties can be a great way to fill that time, like one-on-one private lessons, as I mentioned before, is another thing like this. And also similar to private lessons, parties gives your staff more opportunity to make money, get hours, especially because you can often charge a lot for parties. And another reason is to get more potential customers in the door. This is what I've been harping on, right? Get people in your space. And then lastly, to understand the demand for parties that you may not have thought about offering. Once you put an inquiry form up there, you will get requests that you didn't think of on your own. You may get time requests that you didn't think of on your own. I've worked with many providers who have put up use the Sawyer feature and put up the request form and have subsequently switched when they do parties or whether they offer parties at all, because they suddenly start to get requests in for times that never would have occurred to them to offer parties. But that's when people want them, and that's how you find out, is letting people ask and listening. Dana, did you want to add to that?
Questions? Yeah, well, one thing, and I love what Dylan just said, the other thing to think about, and I put this in the chat, even if you don't have a physical space where most people think traditionally are birthday parties, think about how your services translate offsite. Like, I know Katie from National Kids Gymnastics is here, and she does amazing like on-site at home activities. I think if you're a musician, you can certainly offer that service. It may not be worth it, but if you don't know if people would ask for it, like I definitely think that there's people are always looking for entertainment for their parties, looking for private groups, or especially if you're a cooking provider, there's so many amazing services that you all provide. Don't underestimate that somebody might want to hire you or somebody on your team to do kind of private offsite stuff as well. A question from Liz, is there an option for RSVP enrollment or ways to collect information for party guests? I'm thinking like for a private event. So Dylan, obviously we know our party feature doesn't do that, but how would you maybe approach that? Somebody here that's thinking a little bit more around like RSVP lists, getting guest information into the party as well.
Great question. I love that question. Your head's in the perfect place. Actually, there are a lot of providers who are in the Sawyer community who have answered that question. So if that is you, put your answer in the chat. I'll give you my favorite answer to that question, even though it's not a Sawyer feature. I think tying it to the coupon code is really clever. So what you can do is you can literally just put like a sign-up sheet on the front desk that says, put your email here and you will get a 15% off coupon for summer camp or off your own party or whatever it is, providing some way for you to collect emails. You can get an app on an iPad, whatever it is, some way for you to collect emails from participants. And it helps to sort of like give them something for that, so that you can collect their emails. So, and one thing to consider too is a lot of times there's for a lot of providers have waivers that they need to collect for parties. So connecting sort of like email collection to that in a like not surprising and like, oh, we have your email now, but you didn't expect it. You don't want to do that. But connecting it in a way that's like clear and helpful for the parents can be clever as well. But yeah, love to hear what other people are doing. I also
one
want
that I'll just share really quickly is Catherine shared that she gets a head count from the party host, and then she creates a special like private camp event that they can register for like they would for one of the classes. So that's another way around it where you're, again, like if there's questions that you want to ask, I think it's a great idea. Thank you for sharing, Catherine. Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. That's another thing is if this tends to be difficult to pull off, but if you can collect emails from the host beforehand, you can send an invite, which can be fun. That can be complicated to coordinate, but there's a lot of room for creative solutions here. The other thing that Dana, you had highlighted before about offsite parties, I think is a really good one. And I just want to emphasize that when I'm saying like, get people into your space, I don't necessarily mean like your physical brick and mortar location. I mean, your experience, right? So whether that's if you're doing online classes, maybe you do have a brick and mortar, maybe you're going to people's different locations, maybe schools, whatever it is. So anyway, the parties feature has you don't have to set like a specific location. You can say that you have to request an offsite location and people can enter that as well. So that's very much built into that. So Dana, thanks for highlighting that. So again, I think like the idea here is with this, the way this feature is built is it's sort of like, just if you put something up there, then you can see what's out there and then follow through on whatever you want. No pressure to not follow through on anything that's requested that doesn't fit with your schedule or what you want to offer. All right, going to move on from parties because we got a lot of other stuff I want to get to. So here's how you get more from some of the features that you already use. So you can schedule holiday camps, open houses, and special events using camp/events. So camp/events is very often used for camps, but just want to highlight that doing specific like holiday pop-ups, like we mentioned earlier, can be really helpful. Get people in the door, you're sensing a theme, and you can very often charge a lot for these days when parents really just kind of like need daycare when school is closed and they're still busy. And staff always appreciates getting, well, I shouldn't say always anything, but very often appreciates getting more hours, more work. So this can be a really nice benefit for staff as well. And something I'll point out too is that you can use widget tags. If you're not familiar with that, we can talk more about it for sure. To create a separate widget on your site just for holiday camps. So using Treasure Trunk Theater, I love their website. I think they did a great job. So I'm using them to highlight this again. If you notice on their website under camps in their navigation menu at the top, they actually have two separate options, summer camps and school holiday camps. So even though, for those of you that know scheduling in Sawyer very well, you know that anything that you schedule under camp/events is going to show under camp/events in your widget. But what you can do is you can widget tag the different scheduled activities that you create and create custom pre-filtered widgets on your site so that depending on which page you go to, customers are only looking at either summer camps or holiday camps. So that way they're not looking at something that isn't what they maybe want to register for in that moment. Get in touch with our support team if you want to talk more about this. Another thing you can do is send direct customer links for marketing to customers. So this would be like a specific link to sign up for just one specific scheduled activity. I really like to do this as sort of like a reward to your most loyal customers. So you can get these specific links from the three-dot menu on the scheduled activity in your schedule section. So one thing you can do is when you publish a new activity, you can keep it hidden. and you can still grab the link. And just because it's hidden from your widget and from the marketplace, the direct link still works. So no one would be able to find it, but anyone who you want to sort of consider a VIP and promote it to can go directly there and get sort of first dibs on sign up. And the other thing I'll mention there too is if there's anything specific you want to promote, you can send people directly there, VIP or not. Moving on to Quick Charge, which is a feature that is in each client profile in your contact list. This is a really great feature because you can charge anyone any amount for any reason at any time. I mean, with good reason, of course. But I encourage you to use this for things that, maybe are a little out of the box, like late fees or anything else that's not a traditional sort of something that you can register for or purchase through your portal. I encourage you, as I said earlier, to own the fact that your time is valuable. And if you have a late pickup policy, sometimes it's helpful to have a fee penalty on that. You want to be careful not to make it too low because then people will just use it as an option, but maybe that's good. Maybe you want to offer that too. I also will highlight here that for tracking purposes, here's a little trick. You can create a sort of a placeholder activity under listings that you never intend to actually schedule, but that lets you track your quick charges. So when you quick charge something, you have the option to add details. And if you pick a specific activity, whether or not it's a real activity that you ever schedule, this will then show up so that you can report on it later.
While you're clicking,
Great,
I'll just
thanks.
share some of the things that are popping off in the chat. I think some great questions. One, people wanting to hide widgets on the tab. That's the same. We can definitely help with that. So if there are things that you want to improve on your website, talk to us. Our support team is amazing. If you have not had the privilege of working with them, they are ready and standing by. You can hide an entire tab. So if you don't want to publish it, so absolutely, Brianna, that's a great question. You can have hidden or private camps and events that maybe you're still working on, or if there's a time frame that you're still kind of working through, you can unpublish that schedule so that you're still working on it before customers see it. If you need help, definitely email us. We'll definitely walk through it. Yes, I love that, Liz. Preview mode before opening of a semester. We may or may not have talked about that for a future improvement, like a way to have either both auto publishing or a way to preview it beforehand. So that's something that we don't currently have, but it's definitely something that we've heard and something we hope to improve. The other thing with Quick Charge, just to note for people that are asking, a few people have asked, why do gift card balances not apply on Quick Charge? That is something that we do hear from business owners of wanting more payment options to be working in Quick Charge. It really was designed to be a way to quickly charge a credit card, hence the name Quick Charge. But we hear you and definitely see where that would be a valuable add for that function. So hopefully we'll be able to add that in the future. Cool, that was it.
Cool, thanks. Awesome. Okay, moving on here. I got so much more I want to talk about. Here's a tip. Always use a wait list. This is my opinion here, but I think in general, it's always great to gather interest, to gather emails. As you probably understood from my everything I was saying about parties, I think the more interest you can understand and the more ability that you have to follow through on that, aka customer emails, the better. And you can actually, you may not know this, but you can go in your settings and enable a global setting on your account that will default all future scheduled activities to having a wait list. Enabling this feature doesn't go backwards and enable the waitlist on everything in the past, so don't worry. But it is a way to say, you know what, if I'm just going to make the decision to always have wait lists, because in my opinion, why not? That way you can kind of understand what demand is. This makes it a little bit easier to do. You can sell stuff with optional add-ons. You may not know this, but this is a great way to offer more than just your great programming, which you already do, and to create some additional revenue streams as well. So for example, you can use optional add-ons to sell materials. Maybe you have a required materials fee for things that are necessary, but maybe there's some optional materials. maybe you want to collect donations or sell lunch or t-shirts, whatever it is. Optional add-ons is a great way to do that. And this is what it looks like. You can see over on the left, that's what it looks like to a customer. I also want to highlight form fields. Form fields can be a tricky feature to set up. So I just kind of want to talk through some things related to form fields here. Form fields form fields, you can think of them as registration questions. That's how I think of them. Generally, form fields are set up to be asked of people as they register with you for activities. And why you want to do this is you can then access that information and you can report on it, and whatever information that might be. So some things to keep in mind: you can see the answers to form fields on a roster. So if you ask about allergies, emergency contact info, anything that you might want an instructor to see on their roster for the day, you can choose to display those specifically. You can also report on them via the client list. So you can download a report of your entire client list. It shows all form field answers for all time. So from there, you can filter however you want, right? You can just decide, I just want to look at this one form field answer. I want to look at these clients who've answered it in this way. So you have a lot of flexibility there once you download a report. You may or may not also know that you can send parents directly to their My Account portal to complete form fields after registration. So sometimes you have some required form fields that you want to say, okay, I don't want anyone to register who hasn't answered this question. That's cool. Other times you might want to say, you know what, I want people to answer this question, but I don't want it to slow them down during sign up. So in that case, you can say they're not required, and then you can send people to their portal to answer them later. And if you have questions about how to do this, as with everything I'm talking about, email our support team.
Yeah, Dylan, one of the questions about form fields, and I'd love for anybody that wants to type in the chat. Renee asked, struggle with parents like not remembering to go back in or answer all those questions on the form fields. It might be because of imported students, but just like, how do you, how I think one thing that I've seen business owners do is put a link to their customer account and say, hey, it's been a while. If you haven't gone in and updated some of our questions, we've added new fields that you'll need to fill out, either prior to registering or when registering. That's one way of doing it. If you feel like there's a specific form field that you want families to kind of do in person, you can also potentially fill that out on their behalf by editing profile, like depending on what it is. If it's t-shirt size or something like that, obviously you don't want to do it on things where you do want them to accept, any kind of terms and conditions. But there's a number of ways that I've seen business owners kind of get families to go to their account, review any profile questions, and then complete their profiles.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think in general, like to abstract that question a little bit is, how do you get all parents to do any one thing? And the answer is, that's just not, that's just never going to be the case, right? I mean, that's true of all, like, there's no way to get anyone to do anything, right? So the best way to make sure that people have answered form fields that you don't want them to not have answered before they sign up. In other words, if there's a form field that you need to have someone answer before they sign up, mark it as required. If they're already a client with you and you're just adding that form field now, you'll get them the next time around. So it's not just the first time they sign up, it's whenever they sign up, you can decide what activities form fields are assigned to. You could say all activities, and in that case, anyone who hasn't answered it before will get it next time. So that's my best advice is I think the implicit in that question is is how do you get people to do something that is not required of them? And really the answer is to make it required of them. Couple tips here that I'll highlight. Adult versus child, form fields that are adult versus child. This can be confusing. The easiest way to think about it is who is the answer to the question about. So for example, if you're asking, how did you hear about us? You're asking the adult, right? Because if that family there are two siblings, that's going to be the same answer, right? One sibling didn't hear about you in a different way than the other sibling. So that's an ask of adult. If it's ask of child, if the question is like t-shirt size, that's something that might have a different answer for each child. So you would want to say ask of child for that one. Similar to that, something like t-shirt size could change every year. So for any questions like this that you want fresh answers to every year, the best way to handle this is instead of just saying like t-shirt size, you could say, t-shirt size winter 2022-23, and then at the end of the year, archive it and replace it with t-shirt size winter 2023-24 or whatever it is. Also just want to highlight this new feature update we have here, which is you now have the option to decide whether parents can edit their answers to form fields once they've answered them the first time. And then lastly, I just want to put this out there in the chat. I think there are a lot of creative uses for form fields. I gave a few examples for how they could be used, but I'm curious if there's anyone else who wants to throw in the chat any other creative ways that they've used them that I haven't mentioned. And we can circle back to that later. Okay. Let's see what we got next. Great. Okay, finally into section 3, learn more about the features you don't have or that you don't know you have. So first, I'm going to just hit you with some tips and tricks, as many of the things that I have already mentioned are. First one, chat with our support team, and I'll talk a little bit more about each one of these. Download daily roster, bookmark a location in upcoming, make it an app. We get this question a lot. Use dynamic location capacity, use the widget announcement banner, use cancellation policies, message all instructors. All right, let me talk about each one of these in a little bit more detail, but I'll keep it quick. So this is new. We now offer chat support Monday through Friday, except holidays, between 9:30 and 4:30. What is not new is our support team is great, always been great. Now it's just a little bit easier to get in touch quickly with a quick question. You don't have to email necessarily, you can just chat in. So definitely encourage you to do that.
Great question, Eastern Standard Time.
Yep. Yes. Or whatever the daylight savings equivalent is once that hits. Second tip, download daily roster. So here's what this is. If you have many different, or even just a few different scheduled activities happening on the same day, and you need to download a roster report for each one of those activities, you do not actually need to go into each roster and download the report individually. You can download instead a daily roster, which includes everything that's happening that day. And you can do this for days in the future as well. So the way you do this is sort of a hidden thing, is you need to be in the daily view of your upcoming calendar. And then under the month calendar in the daily view, you can see I have highlighted here, click download daily roster, and that's going to give you a report of all of the class rosters for that day. So in this case, in the screenshot here, it would be both of these things that are happening at 3 a.m. and 4 a.m. So instead of going into clicking into each roster, downloading them separately, you have it all in one place. So that hopefully saves some time. Next tip, bookmark a location in upcoming. So while we're in upcoming, I'll point out that you can use the filter over here on the right to filter to a specific location. And what you'll notice when you do this is that the URL actually changes. So every location has its own unique ID. So you can bookmark each URL. So if you have a couple locations, this lets you quickly and easily navigate between them using your bookmarks or different tabs that you have, instead of constantly using the filter over and over again or scrolling or guessing. The reason location is in quotes here is it's really up to you to define what a location is, right? Like many providers set up multiple locations at the same physical space just as a way to stay organized. So location can be, you can create multiple locations for the same space if there are different groups or different rooms or whatever it is that's going to help you manage this. Just know that it will show the locations on your widget. So, you don't want to be too creative here. Okay. make it an app. I get this question all the time. When are you going to make an app for instructors so that they can access a roster so that I can use my portal on the go? The answer is, we'll do you one better. Bear with me. So you can see here, there is an app icon on the desktop here. Looks great. It says Sawyer. Quick aside, I will point out that the your Sawyer Tools portal is mobile optimized. So it is designed to work on a phone, on a tablet, which is how we're going to do this make it an app trick. So here's what you're going to do. Go to your portal on your phone, on your tablet, and sign in like you normally would. You can do this right now if you want, follow along. And click this little button right here, or the equivalent. This is in Safari. What it's going to do is give you this menu of options, and you can pick add to home screen. And what does that do? It gives you a little icon here that feels just like an app. So next time you go to click this icon, you are going to go right back to your website. It's essentially a bookmark, right? So we're not really creating an app. We're just creating a shortcut that brings you right to your portal. But I'm going to go ahead and make the argument that this is actually better than an app. Bear with me. Here's why. It functions just like an app. It's mobile optimized. But with an app, what happens when they make an update? You got to go download an update to be up to date. Sometimes things are buggy. Of course, sometimes things can always be buggy. But with us, every time you go to this website, you have the latest version of everything. You don't have to go download a new version, anything like that.
You're blowing
Dana,
minds in the chat, just so you know, like people are learning something new today, which is good. That was mission accomplished.
Great. Awesome. I'm glad. I was a little worried people were going to feel like I did a bait and switch because I said, make it an app. And then I said, actually, just go to the website. But I'm glad if this is going to be helpful at all for folks. Cool. All right. I guess this is a decent pausing point since maybe people are following along anyway. Dana, if there's anything else that we should be highlighting here.
More of just like specific questions that I've been answering. Yeah, I think a how-to for all parents, Marissa suggests, which I understand that. Yeah, like how do we get them to follow along? I know that a lot of provider businesses will write kind of like directions or add more to their website just to, again, like make it simple for your customers. Let them know what you want them to do. If you have that listed out in like 3 easy steps to register, like click here. We've seen that across a lot of the businesses that we set up recently. Absolutely cool if you share. The other thing that people were asking, like, how do you send a customer link that keeps somebody on your website? So like if you're trying to promote after school classes at a school, but you also want them to view camps before checking out, like, is there kind of an option to do that? So, yeah.
So, yeah, I think if I understand that question correctly, it's a good one, because one thing that's sort of implicit there is that when you use that get customer link trick that I talked about before, that's sending them directly to like an unembedded widget, right? It's not sending them to your website. It's sending them to a very specific like product page within your widget. So it'll be like a Sawyer URL. If you want instead to send people to that thing, but on your website, you would have to embed that on your website, which you can do. You can embed it. You can make it a hidden page. You could send that direct link to people. Same thing, just a little more work than doing it the other way. So good question. All right, a few more of these here. So let me keep rolling. Dynamic location capacity. This is a feature that not a lot of folks know about, so I wanted to highlight it here. This is sort of buried in the locations section under each location in listings. Here's what it does: is it lets you set an overall location capacity. So let's say you have multiple scheduled activities running at the same time, and it doesn't really matter to you so much, or you're not really sure which one is going to sell more, and maybe it doesn't matter as long as you don't go over a total for your space. Let's say, for the sake of argument, let's say you have an activity that's 5 and 6 year olds, 7 and 8 year olds, and another one that's 9 and 10 year olds, and you have a total capacity of 158 your space. You could set each of the 3 for 50, but probably what's going to happen is one of them is going to be way more popular. It's going to sell out right away. And then you're going to be sitting there thinking, oh man, if I only could sell the other spaces, right? If one of them is a 50 and the other two are hanging around at 20, 30, you might be thinking, well, maybe I should increase the capacity of the 51 to 60, close the other ones a little bit. And you're sort of playing this constant game of like, what should I really do here? If you instead enable the dynamic location capacity feature, you can say, you know what? The overall location capacity is 150. Instead of setting each one of these scheduled activities to 50, I'm going to set them each to 100. Then what would happen is, let's say 9 and 10-year-olds sells 100 right away. Now only 50 more total people can sign up. So maybe you end up with one big group of 109 10-year-olds, and then let's say 25 7 and 8s, 25 5 and 6s. So essentially, this gives you a lot more flexibility to sort of let demand handle itself and not constantly stay in there and keep guessing. The other nice thing about this feature is, if let's say you're doing summer camp and you're doing weekly summer camps and you start noticing, oh, you know what, June is not selling as well as July and August. Maybe I want to cut some staff then. So let me just reduce the capacity for a specific set of weeks, maybe during June, whatever it is. This lets you do that as well. Okay, widget announcement banner. This is another cool feature. This is what it looks like on mobile, for example. This is not a great example because it doesn't say anything in particular other than that we have a banner, but I'll leave that to you. And I'm curious to hear in the chat if people have like great ways that they've used this before, but really this lets you do any sort of announcement. Early bird discount, coupon code, whatever thing that you want everyone to see who hits your widget, you can put it right there at the top. You can set this up in your business account with the drop down at the top right in your portal. This is what it looks like. You can even set a link so that if you want people to go and look at something specific, they can do it. You can say, all right, I want it to just be for these set of dates. Moving on, next thing, cancellation policies. You can create cancellation policies now as well. This webinar is a cancellation policy, 100% money back guarantee. Obviously, it being free is easy for me to say that. You can say whatever you want here. The idea is to be able to say it quickly and succinctly in a way that is really, really clear to customers. And once you set that policy, it'll show up in the confirmation email to customers as well. So why is this? Will help you instill confidence in customers. Like if they know that you have a clear policy, it'll help them trust that you're legit and that you've thought this through, and maybe it's not such a risk to spend money with you. It will hopefully reduce questions. I'm sure everyone here, almost everyone here, has answered questions about refund policies before. It will not eliminate questions. People will always ask these questions, but it will hopefully reduce them. It encourages bigger purchases. Even if you don't have a particularly generous cancellation policy, the fact that you have one will make people hopefully feel a little bit more at ease about the policy, even if it's like, okay, you have this long to cancel or until this date for 50% refund or whatever it is. As long as it's really clear, it can make people feel a little bit more confident about spending the extra money. And it discourages disputes. So dispute meaning when someone challenges a credit card transaction and says, oh, this isn't legit, I want my money back. Then it's up to the way this works is that anyone can challenge any credit card transaction they want. They can say that's not legit. And as soon as they say that, as soon as they dispute it, it's up to their credit card company to decide what happens next. So by having a really clear cancellation policy that is clearly stated on the way to check out and in the confirmation email, you're doing really, really good job with your due diligence to say, I made my refund policy really, really clear to this customer. So it helps if you were to challenge a dispute, it's good evidence to encourage the credit card company to say, oh, actually, no, that was a legit charge. So that can be really helpful as well. And you can set this up under listings. Okay, last one in this list here. How do you message all instructors? Someone asked me this the other day. This is only open to scale providers and some legacy providers. How do you email all instructors? There's not technically a feature for this, but what you can do is if you have custom reports, you can create a list of instructors. Just have to make sure they're in your client list, and you can create a custom list, add it to your favorites, and then it's just there. And because you can message from custom reports, you can send a message to all of your instructors. Okay, going to move on to the secret menu. And we mentioned this one before, widget tags plus hidden tabs, block instructors from contacts, pay your Sawyer subscription with ACH, enable a cart timer, hide gross volume. Well, that's it. Okay. Just to be clear, secret menu, these are secrets because these aren't features that are shown at all in your Sawyer tool, your Sawyer for Business portal, excuse me. You'll have to let us know if you're interested in these things and we can help. So let me just go over them one at a time. Widget tags plus hidden tabs. So as I mentioned before, many of you know, if you schedule something under camp/events, it shows under camp/events in your widget. You'll notice that this widget for Greenwich House Pottery doesn't have drop-ins, semesters, camp/events listed across the top of their widget. Those tabs are hidden. And instead, what they do is you can see this menu on the right, which is their website, is actually directing people to different pages on their site that has pre-filtered widgets that bring customers to the specific pre-filtered widget that contains what they're looking for. So they have one widget for online classes and everything is widget tagged so that it only shows that. They have something else called samplers, which is great because we don't have a tab called samplers, but they can have it on their website. Workshops, private lessons, gift cards. So the idea here is it gives you the flexibility to sort of not only direct customers to exactly what they want using your website instead of our tabs, but it gives you more control over how those things are served to customers too, in terms of like what they're called. Okay, this is a big one. There's a few more, so let me keep going. Block instructors from contacts. So instructor permissions, if you have instructor permissions and you log in to your Sawyer for Business portal, you can only see classes that you are assigned to as the instructor. However, you can click through to, for example, that contact, that client list, and from there you can go to an order or something else. If you ask us to, we can block instructors so that they stop at the roster and they can't go beyond that at all. Let us know, we can make that happen. Another secret feature here, you can pay your Sawyer subscription with ACH. This is brand new. Working on ACH stuff, I will just put that out there. Your excuse me, your subscription generally is paid with a credit card. If you would prefer to pay it directly from your bank account, let us know, we can make that happen. Cart timer. Cart timer is a 10-minute cart timer that holds something in a customer's cart for up to 10 minutes as they complete checkout. So this is really great, especially for rush registrations. For, if someone is really hurrying to try to make sure that they sign up for something. This way, it prevents a scenario where, let's say me and Dana add the same thing to our cart, there's one spot left, and we're both frantically completing checkout. Whoever clicks to actually complete the order first would get the spot, and the other person would suddenly have an empty cart and nothing to show for it, which can be really, really frustrating and infuriating experience. This prevents that. This says, nope, as soon as I add it to my cart, it's being held there for 10 minutes. Dana doesn't even see that it's available. So this can be really great. This is only available for scale providers. Let us know if you're interested in this. Last one here is to hide this gross volume amount on your orders page. In my opinion, this is a fun number to look at, but it's not the most helpful thing. You shouldn't be, you should be using reports to look at your specific numbers anyway. And sometimes this number can, depending on who's looking at it, make people feel like you have a lot more money than you do. So sometimes it can be nice to just hide this, get rid of it altogether so it's not a distraction. Let us know if you're interested in that. Okay, last little list here. I'll run through this one quickly. These are features that are only available to scale providers and some legacy providers as well. Google Analytics and Facebook Pixel for tracking marketing, ads, store credit, add to gift card balance. In this case, it is letting parents store their credit instead of traditionally giving credit to a store because you're not a store. That's the pun. Thanks for indulging me. Moving on. Zapier lets you integrate with many, many, many other apps that we don't integrate with directly. If you're interested in learning more about this, check it out in our help center. Custom reports, that section that I highlighted earlier with the message instructors trick, and a dedicated account manager. So for example, me getting to know your account really well, offering a little extra handholding as you're navigating all the Sawyer features that we went over today, and more broadly, just trying to make sure that your business is hitting your targets, growing, and that you're doing everything you can to do everything that you want to do in terms of offering the programming that you're offering and expanding in the ways that you want to. The last thing I will highlight here, and I know we are at time, but I just want to give you a way to sort of continue some of the learning that we started here today. We have a brand new educator resources page. The URL is right there at the top. This is where you can find, you'll be able to find this and other webinars from the past and future, as well as other tools that can be really helpful for you. Lastly, please always feel free to write into our support email, support@hisawyer.com, to talk more about anything we talked about today, anything you wish we talked about today that we didn't talk about today, or anything else that comes up in the future. In addition to hitting us up on the chat, you can always do that. That is everything I wanted to get through. Thank you so much for being patient as I went through my very, very long list of everything. I appreciate you listening, watching, participating in the chat. Thanks so much for hanging.